What's going on, guys? My name is Arrow, and in today's video I am showcasing my Energy Blade, Spellblade, Battlemage, Inquisitor. Lightning Trap. Let's go. So this is my first foray into the Spellblade, Energy Blade archetype. Obviously, the first thing that everybody thought when Spellblade was released this league was, how is that going to work with Energy Blade? And spoiler alert, it's phenomenal. Combining the Spellblade support makes it so 135% of your weapons damage is applied to your spells. We also use Battlemage, which is a similar effect, albeit less effective, but 100% of your weapon damage is applied to your spells. In order to get a massive amount of spell damage from our weapon, we use Energy Blade. Energy Blade provides a massive amount of lightning damage based on how much energy shield you have, but it cuts your energy shield pool in half, so you really have to stack a ton to make it worth it. Now, why Lightning Trap? So Lightning Trap is a skill that has a divergent variant that allows some of the projectiles to return, giving you the double damage effect that you might get from Nimbus, or the nerfed version of return projectiles, which gives you some amount of damage. But Divergent Lightning Trap gives you 100% of damage on the second hit, so you get 2 hits per boss. Lightning Trap also has 240% damage effectiveness, so all of that added damage multiplied by our damage effectiveness, giving us a massive hit. The damage per hit on this build is crazy. At the end of the day, it is a trap build, and if you do not like the playstyle, which I don't love, you're probably not going to enjoy it. However, if you're looking to take down some of the endgame bosses, this is a great way to do it. Now, when I put this build together, it was about 40 divines for everything, but this was almost 2 weeks ago now that I first put this together, so can't guarantee that the prices will stay the same. But with how much damage this build has, getting slightly worse gear is still going to allow you to do an absurd amount of damage. So let's jump in and we'll talk about some of the interactions and how the build functions and the gear and the gems and everything. Let's go. Okay, so effectively what we're doing here is we are stacking strength and intelligence for the Inquisitor Ascendancy to get a large amount of crit. It also gives us a large amount of life and energy shield to get a lot of strength and intelligence, because strength gives you life and it gives you percent ES. The reason we want to scale a lot of life is so we can reserve it with the Ivory Tower. You get 30 flat energy shield for every 100 reserved life. Now, this archetype of the Ivory Tower Inquisitor is not something new. I've never done it before, and I kind of improvised this. Didn't really watch any guides or anything on how to do this, so I may have made some mistakes. But it worked really well for me. So basically, coruscating elixir, you have to keep this up at all times, because if you don't, any chaos damage that you take will go through your energy shield. And one of the #1 things that killed me is forgetting to hit this flask when I go into a map. It was infuriating. But you got to remember, you hit your flask and then it's got ridiculous uptime. I got 28% quality on this, but you actually don't need that. The reason I got 28% quality is I was planning on adding a 4th flask, and with a little bit of duration, I could have had full uptime of all my flasks with a 4th, including using the Trader Keystone from the Balbala Timeless Jewel. But I never got that far. So just know you don't need the 28% for ridiculous uptime. As you can see, this has just been going the whole time. The life flask doesn't last nearly as long, but when you're mapping or getting any sort of charge generation at all, this will stay up for quite a long time. But we get all of our resistances from the Bismuth Flask here with Elemental Res Suffix, and then the Fire Res from Coruscating Elixir. I think we have a good bit of Overkill Res on everything. Yeah, we get 219. So the Ivory Tower setup, the Double Corrupt here is not phenomenal. Getting levels for Lightning Trap doesn't really do much for us, because most of our flat damage comes from Energy Blade. But this Ivory Tower, I think, was a divine for +1 max res and Trapper Mine, so I just bought it. The Crown of the Inward Eye is fantastic. You got to have Lightning Trap Pierce, or else mapping feels absolutely terrible. And you want to get the return projectiles from the Divergent Lightning Trap, so you have to have at least 1 Pierce there for bossing. Our Energy Blade, you can actually craft you don't have to craft this yourself. You can just go and buy a sword that has a Abyss Jewel in it, and you just get a free Abyss Jewel, because your energy just becomes a normal item. When you shut it off, you can see I just have a scepter here. I bought this for 10C. It just came with Abyssal Jewel, but when you turn it on, it just becomes an Energy Blade. You get to keep the links, keep the Abyss Jewel. Most of my gear is built around getting a lot of stats. This 3-rat talisman looks like it's going to be crazy expensive, and these are not super easy to make. However, a perfectly rolled Astromentus is like 7% less damage than this talisman, so I wouldn't worry too much about making something crazy like this. It's just something that I already had, so I kept it. Something really cool here that I want to talk about is using the Journey Tattoo of the Soul. I've got one here, and I'm anointing one here. So this gives you 40 flat ES per this tattoo that you have. We have 3 of them. It's possible to get a 4th, Wisdom of the Glade, but it's just simply too far away. I could go for a Impossible Escape with All Packed here and grab it, and it would be a ton, but I would have to figure out what else to drop in the build. And honestly, it's almost certainly worth it. I probably should do it, but I'm only level 95. If I had a couple more levels, there's no question I would grab this Jewel Socket here, and then come down here and grab Wisdom of the Glade. There's some other stuff I'm sure you could grab in this area, but I haven't really dug too deep into it. But this would give you an absurd amount of flat energy shield. Just jumping into POB real quick. If we were to get this Journey Tattoo of the Soul, it would give 746 energy shield on top of our 8,800 that we have already. So that's a pretty healthy chunk. But even without that, these are very worth it because you don't really have to do much to get them. This one is already on our path. This one is already on our path. And this is just an anoint. There were some other very good anoints, but nothing gave us nearly as much ES as this anoint would. So I'm not going to go through every gear piece the way that I normally do. I'm more going to talk about mechanics and how some things work together. The Wrathpith Globe sacrifices life, but because we aren't really using our life pool for anything, that's not a problem. You also cannot die from the sacrifice life from this item. So it doesn't matter if you're at 1 HP, you cast a spell and nothing happens. It doesn't sacrifice any life, but you still get all the benefits of the Wrathpith Globe. I went and bought one that had some spell block on it because one of the things that we do is get a healthy amount of block. We have 75 block and 55 spell block. That makes for a very, very cozy playstyle, especially with a small amount of evasion we have, which ends up giving a ton of actual evasion. We don't get hit that much. So basically the playstyle is self-cast Sniper's Mark, you throw a bear trap down, and then you throw it on your lightning traps, and bosses die pretty quick. If they don't move, they die instantly. If they do move, it can be actually pretty annoying. One of the fights that I hated doing with this was Maven, because she moves so much, and often it's to the other side of the screen. So I did not enjoy Maven, but things like Cortex, as you saw in the clip at the beginning, died instantly. As far as what bosses I killed in this build, I only did one Uber. I just don't really like Ubers. I did Uber Shaper and it was very easy. I died twice to forgetting to put on my coruscating elixir. But besides that, I didn't do any other Ubers. I just don't like doing them. But this build is more than capable. When you are trying to just live through phases, you turn off your energy blade and you have 17,000 ES alongside of your evasion and your block and your other sources of recovery, and you pretty much can just take a ton of hits. During the Shaper phase where you don't actually get to fight him, I could just stand there and tank all the ball hits and then not have to worry about it. And then as soon as you're ready to fight again, you put your energy blade back on. So this tree is a strength stacking, int stacking tree. We do a nice big loop here. One of the things that I've added to this archetype that I thought was pretty fun is the Red Nightmare. You get a ton of block here. So basically what you do is you put the tattoo of the Namahu Firewalker onto your strength nodes. You allocate all of these points here, and this pathing allows you to get an absurd amount of block. This gives us 39 block. Pathing this way, grabbing these nodes, and getting block on all these travel nodes. And this pathing also allows us to grab this Journey Tattoo of the Soul for just 1 point. We come through here, Iron Will, we have a decent amount of strength, so this is very strong. The Reservation, obviously you want to grab anything that gives you strength and int along the way. Don't really use a lot of tattoos because you want strength and int on everything, so only using tattoos as much as I absolutely needed to. We have the Brutal Restraint with Balbala to keep our flasks up all the time. These have just been running this whole time. The armor and ES mastery, this is really, really cool because we don't have a ton of physical mitigation. We recover ES every time we take physical damage from a hit, which we don't take a ton of hits, but when you do, that's a really, really nice recovery mechanism. These are just really efficient nodes to give us a bunch more ES. Come down here and grab Pain Attunement because we are obviously low life. Of course, a couple of split personalities here with Strength and Int. These are pretty expensive. I think they're like 3 divines, but they are so valuable. As you can see, 70 of each here and 66 of each here. We use Mage Hunter and Conjured Wall to give us more spell block. We actually have an additional 6 spell block, so I accidentally weapon swapped. So we're up to 61 spell block when we've cast a spell recently, which is all the time. So 75, 61, very, very nice. We grab Guerrilla Tactics and Careful Handling for some quality of life here. A little bit of move speed, trap throwing speed, and some damage. One other very important thing to talk about is we take Zealot's Oath. Instead of grabbing Pious Path, we don't need to regen our life at all. So instead of making it recover both life and ES, we just take Zealot's Oath, so our life regen is applied to our ES. One of the things that I would like to get a little bit more of on this build is regen. So if I were to approach this archetype again, I would try to get a little bit more regen. Righteous Providence is very straighteforward. Strengthening, and then it gives us a ton of crit chance. And Inevitable Judgment means we don't have to get any sort of penetration or exposure and things like that. Battlemage we talked about already, just a huge amount of damage from our energy blade. Now, would I recommend this build? Probably not. What I was hoping to get was a little bit better clear out of this build than I ultimately got. The damage was incredible on bosses. I just don't love the trap playstyle. It feels a little bit slow, it feels a little bit clunky, and I'm sure there are things that I could do to lower the damage and up the quality of life of this build. But at the end of the day, this is where we settled. I did a lot of bosses with it, and it really is a delight to see the chunks that bosses take from our massive, massive hits. So that is my take on Spellblade, Energy Blade, Battlemage, Inquisitor. It is a very fun, but ultimately kind of slow playstyle. If you have any ways that I can improve this, let me know down in the comments below. Come check me out on Twitch. I'm live almost every single day, twitch.tv/AER0__. I will be live right after this video. So thank you for watching, and as always, take care.